Welcome to the Taking a Breath podcast with Parker Mays.
Alrighty, welcome back everybody to this week's episode of the Taking a Breath podcast. Before we get started with today's conversation, I want to highlight a conversation that's happening outside of the podcast every Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time on Zoom. It's for student leaders ages 18 to 22. We meet on Zoom to discuss a variety of leadership development topics, connect, network, and grow together. But let's jump in. Today, I'm excited because I've got Tomasha Suber. She is a CEO mentor who helps coaches master strategy and leadership. She uses her knowledge and passion for operational efficiency to advance business strategy for corporations and small businesses. She's the author of the Six Figure Solopreneur, teaching entrepreneurs how to grow and thrive with a business idea they are passionate about. And that's going to be coming out in July, as far as I understand it. Tomasha, thank you so much for being here. Would love for you to share a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, well, hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pumped, if you can't really tell. Like, I'm ready to get into it. So hi, everyone. My name is Tomasha Suber, and I am the strategic partner, like that best kept secret weapon for CEOs out there leading in the entrepreneurial space. But then also, too, I do dibble and dab into the corporate arena to have a little fun, right? To get back inside of there. But I actually... low key, I don't know if you know this, and I don't talk about it a lot online, but I actually am too a college professor on break right now. But I absolutely love the fact that I'm here today to talk to students and just to talk to people back in and I feel like that was like the golden years, like 1822, man.
That's right. No, and I'm so excited to have you. And I actually saw when I was doing my research that you were a college professor. So what do you teach, and what's your favorite part about being in the classroom?
Oh man, so I teach healthcare management specifically.
Got it.
I've taught an array of courses under that umbrella. But what I love the most about being a professor is actually getting to, I like to bring in what actually happens out in the workforce. I think a lot of what's taught in college is very didactic, right? It's a very book led and, really having to comprehend all of these things. But when you go out into the world, what does it look like to actually implement, execute, lead, manage? Like, how do you do all the stuff you write in those papers, right?
So
cool.
Cool.
It's one thing to pass a test. It's another to pass an interview screening and do the work. And so I love being able to kind of infuse my experience inside of the book teaching, if we will.
That's so good. And having that person, this is from my experience in the classroom as a senior right now in college. I'm seeing that when you have the professor that actually has the real world experience and can share their experience versus just sharing what's in the book, it's so different because the perspective is different, right? When I'm learning the theories, I can say okay, I understand a theory, but when I can learn from an experience, it's completely different, which is why I love doing these interviews. It's literally always people who are doing real world things. And I'm like, this is so cool, right? So I have a huge passion for learning from people exactly like where you are, which is awesome.
Oh man, you just made me feel like I'm boosted up now. Let's go.
Let's go. Well, let's dive right in. So one of the things that I know about you is one of your core competencies is turning CEOs into leaders, right? And a lot of people, they think, oh, well, that's interesting because aren't CEOs supposed to be leaders? So tell us about it. What are some of the things that you see CEOs doing that you're like, well, this is where they are need to increase their strength in order to become more effective leaders?
Yeah. So for me, honestly, I think that a CEO is really good at implementation and doing. And I think that a leader is really good at influencing and sparking.
That's so good.
Right. And I think the huge difference for me and what I know to be true, especially when it comes to leadership, I've met some really incredible bosses. I've had some amazing managers. I've known some really influential in their own way CEOs. But when you become a leader, I think you really begin to harness that, right? You begin to know how to influence people, even the most difficult employees, the most difficult students. Even so, I feel like I've been a leader all of my life, in a sense. I've had a natural knack because I could even influence my friends back in high school. And I think that there's something to say about that. being able to influence people, no matter the thickness of the culture, no matter the difficulty of the situation. And a lot of corporations and small business owners and entrepreneurs, even in college, right? We're not really tapping into the level of influence that we can have to cause change, right? To have impact, but most importantly, to change our own situations. If I knew how much of a leader I was back between 18 and 22, oh man, listen, I'd be a dangerous chick back in the day, you know?
And what's holding students back from that? What is like, is there anything that we can do to say, wow, like I didn't realize I had this potential? What changed in your mindset?
What changed in my mindset is that I realized that getting the degree was not enough. And I realized it once I got it, right?
Wow.
Once you get that bachelor's, once you get that master's, it is not enough. It's not enough like they kind of teach us, right? They tell you like, go to school and you'll get that good job. It's not enough. Because everything that the typical education teaches you, especially K through 12, and most importantly in college, is they're really only teaching us to follow. No matter how many leadership programs they put out, no matter how many small extracurricular activities they build around leadership, a lot of what we are taught is go and get a job. Just say, for instance, like even if you're a business major right now, they're teaching you business, but business in a way for you to go and work for someone else, to follow instructions. You know how many clients I've had where they have like so many degrees in business and they're failing at their business? Wow. It's because we are taught to follow. That's why you only have a handful of programs that are centered around entrepreneurship. And those just popped up in the last, I want to say 6 to 7 years. Yeah. And some of them aren't that great, to be quite honest. And it's because entrepreneurship and leadership, they really just got to see that, man, most people really don't know where they're going. Yeah. Most people really have no clue. You find a manager that you think likes you, you find a director that you think believes in you, and you latch on and you go on for the ride for 10 or 20 years. It's not enough though, just to have that degree. And I realized it wasn't enough just to put my future on a whim by holding on to the coattail of the next executive director that liked me.
Wow. Wow. That is, I mean, that's powerful right there. And realizing that that's what it would look like, right? I mean, we don't have to get 10 years down the road before we look back and say, oh, that's what just happened, right? Right now, listening to this, we're saying, okay, let's wake up. So I want to become that leader. I want to, maybe in college, finishing up college, but I want to be that person who isn't just a follower, be able to think for myself, be able to act for myself. Yeah. What are some of those things that I can be doing to actually get out of that habit of thinking, only based on what someone else is telling me, or, So what's your advice for that student?
So the very first thing that I notice normally with students that probably do need to take up and kind of step up and really look at their leadership is to determine whether or not what you're majoring in is what you want to major in or your parents.
Whoa.
Are you doing what your parents want you to do? And or are you doing the safe thing because you saw people around you make a mistake? It's amazing how many people you see want to major in healthcare and nursing because they feel like it's safe. Nothing's safe. If the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it taught us that no job or no business, nothing is safe.
Wow.
Right? My husband works in healthcare and he was in fear of losing his job. It would have never been a thought that he could potentially not have a job. He works in the operating room. Yeah. Right? Nothing is safe. So we have to get this thing out of our, number one, we got to say, hey, am I doing what I know that I would love to do for at least the next 5 to 10 years? Or am I majoring in something because my parents told me that's a safe thing to have? Yeah. Because people around me who lost something or never were able to go after their dreams, want me to go and do something. Right? Or number two, am I doing it just because I think it's safe?
And I think those two things really, like from what I'm hearing from students, play hand in hand, right? Mm-hmm. Safety and following. Because when I feel like when I'm following my parents, advice where they want me to go, or, especially in some of those like STEM fields where students are saying, oh, I'm a doctor, it's what my parents want, the whole thing. That plays into safety, right? Their parents are saying, hey, this is the safe route, follow this path, right? And so those things just all slide in and become just a path that ends up where I, as an individual student, have no ownership of it. I just feel like I'm not responsible for anything that happens anymore. And so I love
that. That's the next step, right? So you asked me what's the first step, those two things, but the next step of that, now own what your clarity is.
Yes.
So many of us when we're young, we're not clear. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to be old and you don't have to get a bunch of wisdom to get clear. Getting clear just means being bold and having the courage to go after exactly what you know is what you know.
Yeah.
Right? Like I went to school and I think I got an AS in nursing.
Okay.
My mom was really sick, so I decided not to go far away. So I went to the local community college and I got an AS in nursing. My God, I'm so glad I didn't become anyone's nurse. Like the light bulb hit me, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, I don't want to just do this because this is what's safe. I want to do what I absolutely love and what I know I'm meant to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into like leadership in that area where they need the most help, management and leadership. I'm going to go and work in those arenas, right? But I had to make a bold choice. And let me tell you something, it was scary. It was scary, but I got real clear. And then I took ownership of that clarity. I didn't just let it sit. I didn't let it fester. It wasn't going to turn into something 10 years from now when, like I hate my job and I'm at dinner table with mom and dad and they say something to me and I'm just like, well, I wouldn't be here had you let me make up my mind. No, I'm going to make up my mind today. How about that?
Wow. And so when you did this process, right? All of this is things that you are, I'm in terms of the ownership side of it, are all things that you're doing intentionally. When you started doing consulting for people, what was that process like for you when you said, hey, I want to go all in on this thing, and now you're getting to do what you enjoy, but what was kind of that process of diving into consulting like?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. So I started very slowly. I was actually still working a day job. So, and this is a part of, I think, growing as well. I'm also very much a realist. So like, while I go after what I want, I also understand the importance of safety. I can't get you, a student or one of my clients, to do anything if you don't feel safe. So for me to feel safe, I need to make sure that my needs are met. So I kept a job. I was working at a job and I was slowly diving into entrepreneurship and having my own consultancy. What really kind of kicked me into gear was when I got a pink slip, right? And I was just like, oh, well, now I got to do this like full time. It's not like a little small thing that I do quietly with a small business. And as I'm going through that transition, there was no, this won't work. And I think for students and those of you that are listening, you really got to get yourself out of this mentality of always asking for opinions. You will find an opinion that says it won't work.
Whoa.
And sometimes when you reach out and you ask for something, you're going to get what you didn't want. You're going to run up against people who have no vision. You're going to run up with people who are afraid. You're going to run up even on family and friends who've never seen what it is that you're doing. How many of you listening, and even I could be talking to you too, you were the first in your family to do something. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family to be successful with a business.
Wow.
Right? I was the first person in my family to make more than 50,000 legitimately with my business, to hit 6 figures, to make multiple 6 figures. The first person to have like people employed by me, right? There's a lot of firsts, but I also came up against a lot of fears when I would share things with people.
Yeah.
And I've learned over time that I cannot always ask for feedback, but I can share. Be careful with who you allow to give feedback.
And that's the piece of it that I think a lot of students struggle with because of things like social media and how much influence that has on us. When we talk about like posting things or interacting with people, everyone wants to have an opinion. And the difference is, who are you going to let their opinion influence you? Whose opinion actually has weight for you, right? Because it's easy to see it and say like, oh shoot, like I should feel bad about myself as a result of this person. But once we realize like, hey, whose opinion actually matters, that's when it changes 100%.
Right.
In that time for you, when you talked about getting laid off and this becoming your full-time role, in that transition and uncertainty, when you mentioned, it couldn't fail, or like I couldn't fail, was that a mindset thing, or was that because it needed to work for you? Was it like I couldn't fail in terms of, I was going to make it work, or was it like, no, like I had no backup plan?
Yeah, no. So I've always been a person, you can ask like family and friends. It's actually like a kind of a running joke amongst them all. If I say that I'm going to do something, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't happen in the time frame that I initially stated, I'm not going to give up on it. And I think that's something that we all have to learn. I believe, and I constantly tell friends, family, and clients, failure is a reality, but giving up is not an option for me. Right? And if you give yourself an option or a way out, you'll end up finding yourself going out that door. It's almost like marriage. You're not there yet. But if you think about marriage, most people are like, oh, I want to be married forever, right? Like we think about getting married, I want to be married forever. But then it's just like, if you start talking about divorce, you're going to be gone. Right? If you are taking a class with the hardest professor on campus, like you knew when you walked in that door, right? You went and looked on the website and everyone told you what this professor was like, right? If you get in there and you say like, oh man, I don't know if I'm gonna pass this class, you're already giving yourself an out. Well, if I could just at least make a C passing, I'll get out. What do you know, I'm end up with the C?
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
No, I'm determined. I went into like I remember in undergrad, I went into I had the hardest, I got assigned the hardest person for our capstone course. I was like sweating bullets. And because I was like, man, I had made like almost all A's in all of my classes, right? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I told myself, all my friends were like, listen, we just need to get through the C and we'll never see him again. And because it was kind of like this rule where he would make sure you were back in his class if you didn't pass, right? And I said, you know what? No, I need to make at least a B. Like I've been making all A's. I can't get a C in here.
Yeah.
And I was the only one, I was like, I'm going to get a B. And let me tell you something. I slid by. But I got that B.
Let's go.
Right? I slid by, right? But I firmly do believe that if I had settled with my friends, I would have had a C.
Yeah.
Mindset. What you say, right? The things that you speak. It's not always what you do. And just like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to go and I'm going to sit up front in the class, or I'm going to do all this. The person sitting in the back can have a better mindset than the person sitting up front and do better.
Yep.
You can lead from the back of a room. You don't have to be the person on stage making noise. Right?
That's so good. That's so good. Two things there. One, I love the integrity behind I keep my word. When I say it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It may not be in the timeline, but I'm going to make that happen. I think that just that, being reliable, being consistent, being the person who follows through and executes. I mean, that's your whole thing. Don't get me wrong. Strategy, execution. So I'm glad, right? But it's consistency. It's alignment between what you say, what you do, and where you're going, right? So I love that. And then that idea of giving yourself an out was a thing, a mindset change for me a little bit. Like, am I willing to settle for a C? Because I've literally had that happen. Like, oh, I know I'm going into this class. First week, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be one of those that I'm going to slide by and I'm going to pass it. I'm going to do, fine. But like, and then inevitably I catch myself with a C at the end of the semester and I'm like, dang, like, I wish I had done better, but you're right. It's setting yourself up for failure from minute one going into the class.
Literally, like automatically. And I think that we got to give ourselves credit, even in the places where the credit might not be due, right? So I'm gonna give myself credit for getting that C. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's because it was me. I probably could have done a little bit more. But also too, on the other end of that, I think the biggest part for me when I say like I hold myself, and you speak about integrity, and what I want to say to those of you listening, it's interesting to me how we'll find ourselves, and you will find yourself going to get that new job, right? Maybe even meeting that girlfriend, boyfriend. We will do more work for other people than we will for ourselves. We will be more on time for a job than we will for our own benefit and development, right? We will stay up later to help a friend who needs help with their studies, but we'll go to sleep early when we know we should be studying for the test the next morning. we'll get to work 30 minutes early. But if we're showing up for our own business, if we have those desires, or we're showing up for ourselves in some other area of our life, we're showing up 5 minutes before with our hair barely combed, right? I had to be super intentional about how I was going to show up for myself before I could ever expect anyone to show up for me. And that's where we got to flip it. We expect people just to automatically show up for us because we're smart. We got the degree, we got all these things. No, I'm going to show up for myself on such a high level that anyone who steps to me knows it has to be higher than what I'm showing up. Yeah. People, normally what you get is what you're giving. You just don't realize it.
Dang. And I think that is something that I struggle with personally. I'll speak just straight from me is I am exactly that way where I'm going to show up 110% for other people. But then a lot of times, like for me, I undervalue like what I'm doing or what I'm working on. And so even for me, like I needed to hear that because as I'm starting to grow and learn and be able to connect with people and have really cool opportunities, it's like, no, like be the, like, I tell myself, you got to be that person who stands up for yourself, who knows your worth. Right. And it's like, it's hard because, you know, I'm 21 and really trying to get out there and create an impact for people at the end of the day. And it's just like, oh shoot, like, oh no, they don't have time to talk to me, or I don't feel like I should be in front of this group of people or whatever that is. But changing that to, hey, no, like this is the evidence that you are where you should be as a result of what you've done, which is great. It's so good. That's so good. One of the things, so when I originally found you, I don't know if you knew this or not, was on an Instagram live where you were talking about the CEO weekend, right? CEO weekend. I know that's one of your big things. It's coming up. Something that I've done over the summer is put on weekend retreats for college students, leadership retreats in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, which is where I'm based. And I was just curious to hear from your experience, because I know it's just this super incredible thing. Like, how did you get started putting on weekend retreats for people? What's been your experience like with those? Like how, and what's your favorite part of doing it, I guess, is kind of my question.
Yeah, so CEO Weekend really kind of was birthed from, so I'm like really big with ideas and I kind of just put them in like a bank. I don't always act as soon as I have the ideation.
Okay.
But I came to a point in my like more of the coaching partnership realm of my sector of my business that I just couldn't take on any more clients, right? But I still had people coming, and I realized that there was the people that were trying to come in that are on the wait list. There were just these very huge similarities, right? At least 4 to 5 of them. I'm like, you know what? Let's just get together for a weekend. I'm going to put an event on. And so outside of consultancy, I was always the one planning family trips. I planned all the parties. I planned my own weddings, like all this good stuff. You know what I mean?
Love it.
And well, my own wedding. I've only been married.
Hey, it's all right. It's all right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to have an event where I can really get a bunch of women into a room and really pour into them. And let's learn. Let's also connect with each other. Let's build relationships. And then let's go out here and kill it. Yeah. And I literally didn't even have time to put up like, I mean, we didn't build really much of anything. We sent it to a list of people that were kind of already following, and it sold out within like 3 days. It was the wildest thing. And so we hosted our first one in April live, and it was absolutely incredible. And so I've hosted clients live before here where I live in Florida, but never as a really huge group. And so for me, I think the biggest part is I thrive in person and making sure that people feel seen. I think a lot of what we do requires people to really feel like you see them as an individual. Yes. You hear them, right? That they understand that their desires, dreams, and thoughts, no matter how wild or different they may seem, are safe with you. Yeah. No judgment, right? No dream too big, no stone unturned. That kind of stuff fuels me because I feel like I was put here to impact and open people up and expose their real desires. Yes. And that's what happens at CEO Weekend.
Oh, I love that. And that process of creating breakthroughs for people, such an incredible experience. One of the things that you mentioned there, you said, putting like ideas in an idea bank, right? and not like always taking immediate action. That's something that I have wanted to do more. And I know that's not related to the whole bit you just said about, so, but I just saw that real quick, is how do you, is there a process that you have for going back and retrieving those ideas? Or what does that look like? Because I'm constantly coming up with things, but then I don't have time to execute, right? Because I want to stay focused on what's at hand. So any tips for that?
I think so. My tip for that would be, and the way that I look at it is, I feel like things always naturally progress back to that ideation. So I'm a firm believer that when we have an idea, it's literally, I really believe that it's a seed. Literally, I look at ideas as a seed. And there'll be times where you'll have a seed and I see the bank as me planting it in the ground. It takes a while before you actually see anything from that seed, right? And so I see a lot of my ideas as just seeds. And sometimes that seed is meant to grow into a full-blown tree. Sometimes that seed is just going to be like a fruit tree, right? But I'm not always meant to be like, oh, boop, come here. This is what we're doing right now, right? And so I determine that based on what is my next level goal, and or what is my next level desire. Because before I think about other people, when I create offers or I apply for a job or when I open up something, I'm always thinking about me first. And that's one tidbit that I want to give you all. Be selfish as hell in life, because I think too many people tell you to do stuff for the betterment of other people when there is a very small fraction of folks that are doing things for everyone else, right? And so I'm thinking about, what am I going to love to do next? What would I love to see myself doing? And then also too, what does that align with my desires? Right. And so I was like, yes, it actually aligns with my desires. And so I look at what's that next level step? What's that next level desire? And if any of the ideas in the bucket doesn't fit right then, well, then get it next time.
Love it. I love that. And so when you talk about that, like what's next, that next level, I love that because it shows just thinking ahead, thinking strategically. And I love that you play the idea bank into that. And that's something I think I'm still a little bit short-sighted being 21, because I'm like, hey, you know, what's happening tomorrow? What's happening the next day, right? But really meaning to think, hey, I got 60 years left. Like, what's going to happen? You know, so I love that piece of it. And one of the things that you mentioned there is that a lot of people are like, oh, what are you doing for other people, but not like thinking about, hey, what am I going to like to do? What am I going to enjoy? One of the things when I was spending some time listening to other content that you've put out, one of the things that I heard you say was that that coaches and influencers are teaching people how to be popular instead of how to be paid. How to be popular, and like how to get you. It was in the context of people want to show you how to get followers and how to, you know, make all this amazing content, whatever, instead of actually teaching you like how to run your business, actually how to get income, cash flow, right? So talk a little bit about that, because that was the last thing I wanted to bring up, is that quote of teaching people to be popular rather than paid.
Yeah. So you know what? That's actually like, I feel like that's become one of my infamous quotes. I feel like it comes up on, like, I want to say an average 50% of the podcast interviews I'm on. But I will say that when I think about popular versus paid, is I think a lot of times people are so focused on being seen rather than being heard. Like, and I'll say that especially when I was like between 18, 22, 25, right? Like, I want people to see me. I want to be like known. But like, what are you going to be known for exactly? Like, if I start seeing your face everywhere, what do you have to offer me? How am I going to pay you? What am I going to buy from you, right? I see so many young people, they go viral on TikTok. And then when it happens, they're not prepared to sell something. They're not prepared to offer anything. It's like, can I get a t-shirt, a cup, a keychain, anything, right? Do you have just a link for me to donate to your tuition? They have nothing. And so really starting to think about earlier in your life is, how can I monetize opportunities that even appear to be free or nothing? right? I'm a prime example of monetizing a social media following. I started out just posting on Facebook, even though I feel like people were just waiting. I started out just doing live streams on Facebook. Yep. And now there's not a time that I go live now that I don't make any money.
Ayo.
Right. And so and it's not that like, and lives aren't really even like a part of like a mainstream of me trying to like make money, but I've grown a following, a loyal following of clients, not just spectators.
Right.
So really start to think about when we are trying to get people to look at us, are you getting people to look at you from a perspective of, hey, like I really do want to be involved in your life? Like, are you just having friends that just want to hang around to mooch? Or are you having friends that want to hang around to support? Let me put it in that perspective.
Yeah. And it's the idea of like, or like spectator versus contributor, right? Like, are they just watching or are they actually invested in you? Like, are they invested in what you're doing and where you're headed? So I love that. I wonder, do you see a lot of people's mind in how can I be seen? Is that kind of a common theme, is just how can I get my brand out there, but not actually getting my message out there, getting value to people who want to contribute in return?
Yeah, what I think it is, to be quite honest, I believe from what I see and experience, everyone wants to be kind of like uptight. Show yourself. Yeah. Be yourself. I think that corporate and like going to college, we has us in this like defined box, if you will. And then when you leave those environments, you're still in that box. You know, I made more money when I really started showing more of myself, even in the way that we run our business. There's just certain stuff I'm not doing. Even when I work with corporations, if that's what you want me to do, I'm not doing it. Yeah. I'm the chick who walks around probably in Converses and not heels half the time. And if that's what you expect me to do, if you want my expertise, you're going to get these Converse.
Right? That's a show quote right there.
Right.
I love it. If you want her expertise, you're going to get her Converse. I like it.
You're going to get these Converse. And sometimes I might put on a heel and a wedge, right? But I'm owning exactly who I am, right? Yeah. I'm not the person to walk around in stilettos all day with my feet and ankles hurting and swollen just for a look. Yeah. But I think that while some environments might call for that, it has pushed us, and especially the younger, like students and college students, you feel as if you have to be two people. And I'm really encouraging you to be just one, you.
Wow. That's good. And it's such a good note to end on, because what we're seeing is people have insecurities, and the reason they're two separate profiles, who I actually am and who I'm putting on, is that I'm insecure and I'm trying to put that perfect front on. And what you're sharing from your experience and mine as well is people want to know you authentically. People want to know who you are. And so you, by putting on that front, are actually not giving them that opportunity to interact and engage genuinely and enjoy all of you, your personality. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's so good.
It's been a great thing for me to be able to share.
That's so good. So Tomasha, where can people find more of you if they like this conversation? What's the best place to check out?
Yeah, so find me on Instagram. That is my playground, if you will, Instagram land. At Tomasha Suber. I'm sure we're going to have some show notes and things for you all to be able to click on. But that is where I live and thrive. I do not have someone that engages for me. So if you ever get a response, it is me and only me. Then also too, feel free to follow me over on LinkedIn. I go over there sometimes to have a little pre-party, but the main show, the main spiel, the ticket is for Instagram.
Good stuff. And guys, it is really, I can't stress enough, really high value. From stories are high value to posts to lives, everything. I mean, I've engaged for probably like 6 months now since I originally found you, and just have gotten a ton of value, and I'm excited to finally share an actual conversation with you. So I really appreciate your time and just all the wisdom you shared today. Incredible.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. Can't wait for this episode.
Awesome. And for anyone listening, as always, follow us at Taking a Breath Podcast on Instagram for weekly clips and content and more just like this interview. Appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to the Taking a Breath Podcast with Parker Mays.